my brother from another mother. Patrick Clark is here. What's up, brother?
Hey, man.
How you
Thanks
doing?
for having me on.
Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
REIG in the house.
Yeah.
I used to see you guys everywhere, and it's been a while. So you had a lot going on, though,
Yeah,
over at REIG.
Yeah.
You guys are still flipping a lot of houses in
We
San
are,
Diego.
We are, yeah.
In fact, that might be heating up, my understanding, from an inventory standpoint. You've got other things going on, apartment buildings. There's all kinds of things going on in that space. Today, I'd really love to talk about the real estate piece,
Yeah.
what you have going on there. So, how do you, first of all, approach the flipping market? And we have two articles to discuss today as well, talking about the San Diego real estate market specifically. One local, one national, both mentioning San Diego in a big way. What's your feel from what you guys do in the flip space?
Yeah. Well, I think it's I draw for a lot of years. I've been doing real estate since 2002. Before that, I was doing a lot of REOs, selling properties for the bank, and then doing REIG for 8 years. And gone through a few cycles. Last year was different than what I've felt in the last 8 years, how the market kind of dipped down. But I also have a multifamily side and a construction company. So drawing off those different segments of real estate as a whole, I'm very bullish about the next 12 months, in particular the next 12 to 18 months. I think they've built more houses in Houston than all of California, in the last few years, and so we just haven't kept up with the supply and demand. And there's a lot of attraction to San Diego that I think when we hear about like affordability in the Bay Area or New York, we're attracting those types of jobs, and I think that's a big factor that we're going to continue to see the upward pressure on on pricing, inventory being down, and so we're getting ready for the next year.
I'm so glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
because it's so true. We've talked about inventory, but when you go to the heartland, when you look at Texas, when you look at even Missouri, when I was just in Missouri last week or the week before, when you look at most areas right now, new construction is booming.
Yep.
And resale has to compete with new construction, and it's tough. It's tough. What's really interesting about San Diego is we have such little new construction. And all the new construction we have is on the outskirts. It has to be.
Yep.
So what you guys do, you basically take an older home and create a brand new product.
Yep.
There's a lot of demand for that. There's a lot of demand for that. And because the inventory, because there isn't a competition with new construction, because we aren't putting on enough new units each year, the only question is, how will this California exodus, the San Diego and also California exodus, play into the real estate market? A lot of people believe that, hey, listen, we've lost over 10,000 people each of the last 2 years a net loss of 10,000 people. Those weren't homeowners. Those weren't people who were going to buy homes. Those are people who were just barely making it, and then they just couldn't anymore. And so they moved to Vegas or wherever. And so, nothing against Vegas. Vegas is great. But a lot of people go to Nevada. A lot of people go to Utah. A lot of people go to Arizona. It's close by. You can still get to the beach in 1 day's drive. But it's much cheaper to live there. And so that's the only question. But you're 100% right. Compared to everywhere else, we do not have the new construction competition like they do. And when we do have a home that's like new, it's a home like an REIG home that was a dump that you guys took and made it into a beautiful home that's in like new condition, but it's technically a resale. It's not a new construction.
Yeah, I think it's not going to let up. I mean, we've seen the state in 2017 pass really level the ordinances for the accessory dwelling units or the granny flats. That's one of their solutions to increase housing, is to make it a lot more easier for people to put a companion unit or a granny flat, ADU they call them, in your backyard. And so when they did that, you went from about 5% of SFR, single family residence zonings, to you could do it on 5% of lots. Now you can do it on about 95%. And so I see initiatives like that. They're just going to have to keep coming up with things like that to make it easier to build, easier to redevelop. I mean, it used to be people would build those things, you got to spend $40,000 on permits. So it'd be doing it in Rancho Santa Fe, but not in Normal Heights or City Heights in these areas. Now you can put them in relatively, they've lowered a lot of the costs. There's a lot of bonds and initiatives to level the expenses to encourage people to do that. And I think we're going to see more of the smaller housing. You look at like China, certain areas, 400 square foot to 200 square foot is a lot of what housing is. We see that up in LA, where you're getting $2,500 to $3,000 for a 400 square foot studio apartment. I think we're going to have to continue to bring up smaller living quarters to keep up with the demand, because that's not going to go away.
It's true. In New York City, there are people who live in under 100 square feet in a lot of places.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places where people have an apartment that's under 100 square feet, where they have kind of 2 levels. They'll sleep in a cot that's like in the air. It's hoisted up over here, and I mean, it's crazy. But when you have a place where a lot of people want to be, that seems to be the natural progression. What's interesting here is that you can still find homes on an acre of land, or half an acre of land. Like, that still does exist. So we might be far away from that, but it's definitely the direction that we're headed. I wonder when they will be talking about allowing you to build up, and when that is going to become something that is, because a lot of redevelopers, we have a lot of smaller developers in San Diego. The big home builders are all on the outskirts, because that's where the big chunks of land are and the 3,000 home projects are. But what we really need is we need more, like the ADU thing, we need more stuff like that to get the mid-sized developers and smaller developers to be able to come in and go, you know what, we could buy these 3 houses here, and then we could build up and build a 4-story, 26-unit place or something like that.
Yeah, so going after the density that you can put on lots, maximizing the land that we do have, is definitely an initiative that they got to take on.
I think so. I think that's got to be done.
Yeah.
Because you get to a situation where eventually it won't make sense. I mean, it'll be more and more difficult to make sense out of going in and just flipping 1 unit at a time.
Yeah.
It gets very difficult and risky. It's risky. The higher the prices go, the more risky it becomes. Especially when we're kind of straight up like we have been here. What do you think, I mean, just in general, I mean, you guys know what you're doing. You go in, you buy a house that needs some TLC and then some sometimes, right? Houses that are this close to being condemned in some cases. Other times houses that just haven't been touched in 30 or 40 years. What do you see as the impact of that on that local community, on that neighborhood? I mean, do the neighbors just love the fact that you're coming in and brightening things up? Yeah,
I think you get a mix. I mean, people are in different situations in life, but when a lot of the housing stock was built pre-1980s, 1970s, 60s is when a lot of the inventory in San Diego is there. If you don't touch it over a period of time, you have deferred maintenance, and it just brings blight to the area. So for us, it's not easy. I mean, we're buying distressed properties, we're buying distressed situations typically, and to see what it can be allows us to go in there and make it what it should be. And so we have a construction company and have worked a lot in the construction industry, so we're able to leverage some of our expertise from the construction field to better put in a product there that retail you're probably not going to get done for what we need to get it done for. But there's a lot of pressure on construction as well. I mean, you have the tariffs that are really hitting a lot of shipments, a lot of material that comes in, on shipping containers. All that stuff's going up. Cabinets have gone up like 25%. Labors are going up. You have a lot of pressure on the construction as well, which is going to further hamper new development. I mean, you look at a lot of the affordable housing is in areas like Ramona or Fallbrook, because land is a lot cheaper. You got to be at usually $50,000 to $100,000 a lot per home. Well, it's hard to do that in San Diego proper. And so a lot of the building you see here, it's $900,000 inventory, just because the cost to build, the cost for building fees, all those things really add up. So for the developer to be able to go in and make a profit, to stay in business, to keep building, they have a lot stacked against them. So I look at that opportunity to maximize the value of your property, to renovate or put, even if you own a home, to put a unit in your backyard where you can rent it out. I mean, rents are, that's blowing my mind as I'm looking in some of the property that we own in, Normal Heights, City Heights, Kensington. I mean, you got 1-bedrooms that are now pressing $2,000 a month, over $2,000 a month. But that's opportunities for homeowners to increase their ROI on their property by putting some money into it. I think we're going to see a lot of that repositioning that asset that's there.
So do you think you'll see people who have equity maybe dip into that, build the accessory dwelling? I mean, what does it cost to build an ADU? I mean, that's a loaded question, but
Yeah,
you know, is it a range? Is it 100,000, 200,000? I mean,
you're going to be priced per square foot. Usually around that $200 to $300 a square foot.
Okay.
Is where if you're going to hire a general contractor to do it. But then you have a lot of you have a lot of architects and designers and permitting fees. But so it depends on where you're at in San Diego. Some municipalities are very pro the initiatives, and they've rolled out the red carpet, and they're making it very easy for people to go through that process, and they're approving bonds that are covering impact fees and school fees and water fees and all that stuff. So they're making it very easy to encourage a lot of that. And then some cities are just very difficult, not good to deal with when it comes to that. So I think it depends on where you're at, and then it depends on the type of construction. But if you're doing a simple, staying under 500 square foot usually allows you to keep the cost down from a building impact fee, but the smaller the square footage, the higher price per square foot. So you may build a 500 square foot one bedroom, one bath in your backyard, and you're paying $250 a square foot. Whereas if you go up to say 1,000 square foot or 1,200 square foot, now your cost's going to go down to maybe get under $200 a square foot.
So you got to really take a look at that. What it would rent for.
Yep.
What that difference would be on the investment side, just your return.
Yeah. And I really I look at it as an opportunity, but as the market shifted, and it was August. It was this time last year, and we buy about on average anywhere from 5 to 12 homes a month, and so I remember there's 2 deals that we brought in Ramona, same time, closed them at the same time in July of last year. One was a little bit more intensive construction project. And so we got one on the market end of July, and it went right away. First weekend on market, we sold that thing. We owned it for less than 90 days. I had another one that went about 3 weeks later, got on the market mid-August, and it had already turned. By about mid-August, it had already turned last year. And this thing just sat, and inventory just started. It was kind of doubling, and just really just watched it go up. And so that one I ended up selling the beginning part of this year. It was the first time in the 8 years of my career that I've been doing the redevelopment that I got stuck with inventory that just I couldn't sell. So some of them I put renters in them, and then I went deeper into this ADU to look at, okay, if I hold on to these, how can I maximize the ROI? And so that's often been the case in my life, is when a problem presents itself, I pivot it into an opportunity to. That's how I started a construction company, was the challenges with the construction labor and market and materials to manage for our own flips. I started a construction company out of it. So usually challenges present opportunities if you can look for the gold within the rough for it. So I'm kind of, we're doing about 3 of those right now, 3 building units in the back.
Oh, really?
And just really pricing out,
To hold?
To hold. I'm pivoting a little to hold. I think we're definitely going to have a recession at some point, whether it's next year, this year, 5 years from now, I don't know. I've positioned our companies to be more lean and in a position to pivot with that. And then when things do that, like when the market shifts and I got to sit on inventory, I'll pivot them into a different strategy and always have that, what's option A, what's option B, what's option C. But I think a long term, just even because I have 5 companies that I have a lot of partners in different assets that I have. But my wife and I were looking at what's a strategy for our long term play. If you can get into a property for, say 500 to 700,000 in kind of North Park, Kensington area, which is hard to do.
Yeah.
But if you get it distressed and then you add value and then looking, okay, how can I increase additional value to get rent and income out of it, hold on to that thing for 10, 15, 20 years. I think they're all going to be worth over $1 million in 10 to 15 years.
There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
Dude, the houses in Oceanside that sell for $550 right now, that will be $1 million.
Yep.
I mean,
For
we
sure.
saw it happen in Carlsbad.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that was that even 10 years ago?
Mhm.
I don't know. But it wasn't that long ago. It was a recent memory. You looked at Carlsbad and you're like, man, that's expensive. Houses are $600,000 in Carlsbad now?
Yeah.
What? Now those houses are all $1 million or more.
Yep.
The same thing's going to happen in Oceanside.
Yeah.
100%.
And Carlsbad's got a lot of pressure because you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are in the Bay Area who had tech companies or some sort of company that they sold and they had an exit. Now they're coming to Carlsbad. You have an airport right there. You have
Sure.
a lot of, and so you have just a lot of pressure on those pricing. And so I think we're going to continue to have an attraction in San Diego that's just not going to go away unless, global warming or
The weather
something changes or, becomes
The
like
beach
the
goes
Midwest.
away.
Yeah,
The ocean disappears
it's
one
just
day.
not going to go away. You're going to have your ebbs and flows. We're going to have a market correction at some point. How deep and for how long is anybody's guess. But if you look at it from what type of capital are you going into the deal. If you have patient capital that can be in it for a 10 to 15 year horizon, I think you're going to be solid on placing your bets here in San Diego.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We just haven't seen the kind of run up that you've seen in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Vancouver, some of these places, even Seattle, which is struggling right now, according to that Case-Shiller index that came out this morning. San Diego, one of the 7 cities on there, listed as still hot, a market that is still hot, San Diego. And then a couple days ago, or maybe it was yesterday, the San Diego Union Tribune released that information that they now have the highest average median pricing. This includes attached and detached in San Diego ever. So, it's a red flag in one sense, like, we're at the highest ever.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good time to sell, right? But you also look at why. What's fueling that?
Yeah.
And is that thing that's fueling that temporary? Or is that thing that's fueling that something that we're just in the beginning?
Yeah.
That's what you have to look at with something like that. It's like buying stocks. A lot of people will buy stocks on the 52-week low list. You need to look at the reason.
Yeah.
Why is it at its 52-week low? People will sell stuff when it makes a 52-week high. Same reason. You got to understand why. And so I think the catalyst is one of the things you mentioned: lack of inventory, lack of new builds, and simply the macro elements of what makes San Diego great aren't changing.
No.
People will always want to come here.
Yeah.
People will always want to live here. So obviously, prices do better in a better economy, which we've had.
Yep.
We have a low rate environment. Those things are all working for it, no question. So what we'll have to wait and see, I guess, is just how big and how long that recession may be. Will it just be a blip and then we're off to the races?
Yep.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but I can see a
I
lot of
think
people.
Last year was like that. Last year was a blip, and it affected people who were sitting on a lot of inventory, because I talk a lot of people in the market who do what we do, and a lot of people had 30, 40 houses when the market shifted, and so. But now it's back. There's still outliers. I think Ramona and Fallbrook, those are still homeows. Those are still flat. There's builders that I know that are just looking to unload what they have. So I think there's still opportunities for people. If you're buying and you're looking for a place for your family, I think you can get some good deals in some of those outlier markets around San Diego, because you're in a feeding frenzy right now. If it's Claremont, you're getting multiple offers first weekend on market. That buying frenzy is there again, especially with where rates are at, and we can say it's going to go up, going to stay the same, or go down. It's one of those three.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out tomorrow. The Fed is meeting right now, and they're going to release information tomorrow. I've been telling you that they're not going to cut interest rates. Everyone's saying they are. I've been telling you they're not. So we'll see if I'm right tomorrow.
It's good putting it out there.
I don't think that they will. I just don't. It wouldn't be prudent. It wouldn't make sense. The idea of getting ahead of a recession with cutting rates is a bad idea. You don't shoot the enemy until you can see them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't start sending bullets out. You know what I mean?
And so if they do, they see an enemy that we don't see.
Right.
If stuff with the trade wars and things like that really go to another level, they're shooting at something that we are just unaware of right now.
Could be the case. Could be the case.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the construction costs. I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
I was unaware that tariffs were impacting construction or materials.
Yep.
I didn't realize we were getting so much of that stuff from overseas.
Yeah, a lot of it comes in shipping containers to Long Beach, and I mean that's affecting the Phoenix market, because I mean it's a short drive. A lot of the building materials that go to Phoenix or Vegas are from Long Beach.
No kidding.
And so a lot of those ports of entry are getting hit hard, and that's where a lot of material comes from.
Huh. I'll be darned. That's a big deal. So what do you say to people, because Chip and Joanna have created this fascination that everyone has with buying a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis who would love to buy a fixer-upper, which is essentially what you do.
Yeah.
What would you say to the average person who's maybe never flipped a house before but wants to? And maybe they want to do it for themselves, not to sell it, but just for themselves. Any advice?
I think right now I would trend lightly. I mean, if you buy, it really depends on your capital stack. I mean, it's if you're able to get good Fannie Freddie type of debt and you're in long term at a good interest rate, that's different. But if you're borrowing, who you're borrowing from and when do they want their return, I think look more closely at that, because you can get caught up into the fad of wanting this or wanting that. And if you buy with the wrong type of money right now, and we do go into even a year to 2 year recession, all of a sudden you're upside down in this property and it becomes your worst nightmare. So I would just say with caution there's a reason that not everybody does it for a living. And so don't want to hold them back because all things are possible, but really look carefully on the type of capital stack that you go into a deal, because I think that dictates a lot. People can have the best intentions, the best deal, but if they can't hold on to it through a market shifting, and it's not a matter of if but when it shifts, if you can hold through it, then you're good. But if you can't, I would exercise with caution and just watch TV with it.
Just watch TV with it. It's probably the best advice you can give. Is like, hey, it's great to watch it on TV. Stick with that. And we've seen, I'm personally, I'm scarred.
Yeah.
I've seen the horror stories. I've seen recently. We had a lady, bless her. She bought a house. She thought she could flip it. She had X number of dollars. She spent that money like that.
Yep.
And the house wasn't anywhere near done.
Yep.
But she was trying to live in it.
Yeah.
And it frustrated her, and it made her upset to where she didn't want to be in the house anymore because she couldn't do the things she wanted to do to it, and she had to sell it. Fortunately, we connected with an agent who was able to sell it for $35,000 more than what she had bought it for. It was just a few months later. But he did a great job marketing it. Shout out to Joe Corbacero.
Yeah, and I think that whole construction side is a big technicality that people underestimate. Like right now, it's hard to get GCs who can do a project with quality in the time frame that you need. So if you have some construction experience, and I think that's there's a lot of people who do real estate, but they don't add value to the transaction. And I think there's going to be a separation over the next couple of years of the agents or the people who can buy a deal and create value through good renovation. But there's a lot of people out there that don't add value to the transaction. They're looking to pull their piece, their rake out of the transaction. So I think who you do business with is a lot to do it. There's a lot of agents who, there's good agents and there's bad agents. And so agents who are just out for their commission and they just want to get somebody into stuff. I mean, I just got stationed in San Diego. I was 18 years old, and this was in 2000, and I just wanted to buy. I got approved. I had my loan approval, and this was 2001, 2002, and so I'm, approved up to a couple $100,000, and I ended up buying a condo conversion in City Heights. Know nothing about City Heights, but and then the market went like that big time, and so that would be my caution is just know the timing of when you're going in. If you understand construction, that's good. But know that it's tough right now, even for experienced construction operators. There's a lot of odds stacked against things going well. So if you need everything to go well, like you need your construction budget to come in, your time frame if you're flipping it, if everything's got to hit, knock it out of the park for the deal to work, I wouldn't do that deal. You budget in some margin of error on multiple areas because you just don't know, you can't factor in all those things going right.
Yeah, and when we are in a situation like this where prices have been up for so many consecutive years, it does create, a little bit thinner layer that we're walking on, whereas if we'd been at a certain price for a long period of time. And the reason that it does that isn't because the real estate's any less valuable, isn't because San Diego's any less desirable. It's 100% because prices can go down 100,000. We're talking about Carlsbad where they've gone up a lot. Prices could go down 100,000, and there's people who could still sell for a profit.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the reason why it makes the market thin, because when it comes back down, that person who bought at the right time, they can push the sell button. They can say, you know what? I'm out.
Yeah.
And they can sell where you just bought in that neighborhood, so you lost 100,000 immediately of equity. They still made 250,000 because they bought 6 years before. So that's the reason why it makes it thin, is because people can still sell at lower prices for a profit.
Yeah. I always tell my team, if you're anchoring on one comp, because I have acquisition managers who their job is to buy property and to show this is the value that I think we can sell it for. I say, well, if I remove the top comp, what does that do to your value? If I can remove your best comp, can you still get there? And oftentimes it's speculative on, I think it's going here, so I'm going to buy based off of that. That's where people can get caught in a term I learned from you, comp bomb, right? You buy here, you had a comp 4 months ago, but it takes you an extra 3 months. And then in the period of renovating, getting it on the market, somebody comp bombed you, and now you get hit on your appraisal. And so just really, if you can remove some of those data points to analyze in a deal and still make it pencil, do that just as a sensitivity analysis.
Terrific. Anything the real estate community should know about REIG, what you guys have going on?
Yeah, I think, we're here. We've been doing it for a while. I think the last 3 years we've done the #2 the second most volume in San Diego for buying and selling. And I'm really, I mean, I know there's a lot of agents that are listening, and I think it's continue to master your craft. I think we're going to experience some stuff over the next 2 to 3 years in real estate that's going to be a disruption, just like Uber disrupted taxi cab drivers. There's still people exchanging for a taxi cab or for a ride for transportation, but I think that's coming up for real estate. I think it's going to be the automation. It's happened in different ways with for sale by owner. Just, you have DocuSign, you have some digitizing it, but the momentum. I mean, Amazon, they just bought into the real estate space, with the company, and so I think that pressure is not going away. And so I think a lot of agents are going to, I've been saying, I think it's going to be a bloodbath for agents. So my advice is, like, keep up on your game. Like, continue to offer that wow service to your clients and take really, really good care of your clients so that they tell other people about it and keep that referral business going. And I think if you build your business off a good referral platform, I think you can still provide a service, but I think most people are going to get pressed out of the market through automation and things like the Uber effect. And so that's one of the things that we really look at it. And we have a brand called Sell Your House Direct, which is we offer a service for sellers who, for whatever reason, it's not their home, they've owned it for 30 years, they haven't done the maintenance on it, or they have a death in the family and they inherited it. Oftentimes we come in with a service and a quality and kind of take what you want, leave what you don't. Our cost of construction is going to be cheaper than your cost, so maybe what we put into the house versus what you put in. Oftentimes that cash offer within 3 days, 7 days, we're putting it on the market for a few months, getting it ready, doing all these showings, doing repairs, going through negotiations, going in and out of contract. I think providing a service is a huge value add. I know that's what we really press to do. We're not perfect, and I think even when you mess up, it's how do you respond to that mess up. I think that's where we're different, is we step into it as best we can to make the situation right. I think that providing a quality level of service, the ones who do that and can understand that and really take good care of their clients, they're going to survive regardless of what happens, but most other people are going to get pressed out.
The transactional people will start to lose.
Yep.
Because those transactional elements are going to get automated, is basically what you're saying.
Yep.
And what you're diving into there is I'm actually speaking tomorrow at a private pitch session in Rancho Bernardo for realtors, and the whole point of what I'm going to discuss is how to get people what they want.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how often people just want the least hassle. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, people will give up money. They will, give up certain things that you may see as valuable, or you may expect that they're going to see as valuable. Mm-hmm. But really, the most valuable thing for them is to be done, to move on. And this happens a lot. And we've seen it, that we don't live in a negotiating culture. Mm-hmm. We live in what I call a CarMax culture. CarMax, the biggest used car company in the United States of America, and they have a no haggle policy. Mm-hmm. There's no haggling. The price you see is the price you pay. Don't even ask about it. Yeah. Not $100, not $10. That's it. Yeah. Right there. So how can the one thing that we all expect to haggle, the company that does the best in this country has a no haggle policy? It's because people want easy. They don't want conflict. They want simple. They want to push the button and have it happen. That's how they like things to happen. Mm-hmm. So I could see how that would be successful, because someone might look at it and go, you know what, we could make an extra 30 or 40 maybe if we spent the time and did all this, and then not have to be in here and I'm hurting my back and trying to fix the cabinets, and maybe we can just do this right now and just be done. Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me. I could totally see where someone would see that as valuable, because they're getting their time, they're getting their energy, they're getting their effort for whatever that delta is. Yeah. And that delta is what you do. Yep. So it makes sense. It makes sense to me. Tremendous stuff. Patrick Clark from REIG, thank you so much for spending your time with us today, man.
Absolutely.
It's great
Pleasure.
to see you, brother.
Yeah, usual.
Hey, share this with your friends. Make them smarter than everyone else. We'll see you soon.